All right, let's talk about the top 10 things you're doing to make sustainable weight loss absolutely impossible long term. All right. After coaching 1,000 people through fat loss, I keep seeing the same mistakes over and over and over. And they're not rare mistakes, they're universal across all the people that I've coached. And they're the exact reason that people stay stuck and they can't make long-term sustainable progress. And this episode isn't going to make you feel good at first, but it's going to change how you see everything in the end. If you spent years dieting, struggling, and wondering, what's wrong with you, this episode you needed to see probably 3 or 4 years ago. All right. And if you're starting to watch this and you've never dieted before, or you're just getting into it and you think you have the answers, this isn't for you, right? This is for the people who have tried and tried and tried, the frustrated 35 to 55-year-old crowd, typically, who's done everything right and they still just can't win at this, right? And this isn't about information. It's about the fact that you already have all the information, right? You've probably been somebody who's walked around saying that you know what to do, you're just not doing it, right? This is about pattern recognition. After, me personally, after seeing 1,000 people, the patterns don't lie, right? And this isn't about blaming people. It's about helping people have clarity on what's going on and, what they need to do, right? The truth is you're not broken. You've just been running, the wrong plays, to use a sports analogy, year after year after year, all right? So the number one biggest mistake is trying to lose weight too aggressively, right? Everybody's heard this before, but a little different spin on it. The most motivated people destroy themselves the fastest, right? Because the psychology behind it doesn't fit. Urgency, feels like action. So it makes you get this dopamine hit, right? You need to make up for lost time. The pain is so heavy about where you're at and you're finally ready to make a change. And, typically people who have been in this cyclical dieting mindset for a long time have the belief that more suffering equals, more benefits, or that they deserve the results more, which is a completely false belief, right? And some real world examples of this are, 800 calories a day, a PSMF, if you haven't heard of that, Google it. 2-a-days, working out twice a day, losing 10 pounds and then gaining back 15 after. But you ultimately end up in survival mode. You're going too hard, right? Your body will hold on to fat when it feels like, you're effectively trying to kill it. And you can burn off like aminos and protein for energy and really just, not have the substrate to maintain muscle. And the biggest thing is you're going to deplete electrolytes. You're going to be super dehydrated because you can't hold on to water. You're going to feel terrible and eventually you're going to quit, right? The harder people go, the more they destroy, the very thing that they need, their metabolism. Their motivation, isn't necessarily the problem. It's just the wrong vehicle. They're trying too hard effectively. It's like flooring a car that doesn't have gas in it, right? Like it's not going to do anything. Like nothing's going to happen. All right. How do we solve this one? A sustainable deficit, right? So not the same deficit all the time. I'm real big on the fact that we have to constantly confuse the body. So we shouldn't be sticking to the same thing, just hoping like you hear people say, just cut calories to 500 calorie deficit, stick to that long term. Like that doesn't work systematically. Your body's too good at adjusting, right? Build your metabolism up before you attack fat loss like we do in my program, right? We need to stimulate your metabolism. If you've been chronically dieting for years, it's not in a place to where it's working well. So the idea that, you're just going to go, well, now I actually want to lose weight, so now I want it to work well, when all these systems are in dysfunction, it's not going to happen, right? And the goal is progress, not punishment. We're not trying to beat ourselves up just to try to get a result, and that makes us feel like we're doing something. The goal is for you to get the result and it to be effortless, because that'll be the least amount of pain and stress on your body. You don't earn results by suffering. You earn them by being smart enough to stay consistent long term, which is something I always say to my clients in the group meetings and in my program is, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent over a long period of time and you'll beat 99% of other people at this, right? And the aggressive approach, it bleeds into how people think about fitness altogether, and it makes it like a terrible thing, right? Which leads into number 2, treating fitness like a punishment. If you hate every second of the process, then you're building the wrong lifestyle. It's not something that's going to be sustainable, and you secretly already know that from the beginning, right? So the psychology of this, shame-based motivation, I let myself go, I got to drag myself to the gym, exercise is a penalty for eating, nutrition, is so restrictive. I wish I was like so-and-so and I could eat all this stuff. trying to fix yourself versus like build yourself up, which is what you need to do, right? Some real world examples of this, forcing yourself through workouts when you're like, that you dread and you hate. Eating food that you hate because you think it's clean, which is all BS anyway. Quitting the second things get hard because there's no joy in it for you, right? These are all cyclical thought processes that you're operating off of that you have to crack into. It's not the plan, it's not the food, it is the cyclical thoughts that you have. You can't sustain something you hate. Think of any relationship you've been in. Once it started to go south, right? It wasn't something you were going to be able to hold on to long term, and you kind of already knew it, right? And you were kind of already out the door. Same thing happens in, dieting programs and like, when you're doing cuts and you're doing, detoxes, juice cleanses, all this crazy stuff that's not sustainable long term. This should add to your life, not drain you out of it, right? The punishment mindset keeps the shame cycle alive, right? So if you're constantly having to punish yourself, that always has the belief there that you're doing something wrong, right? So the one thing I really put into practice with my clients is how amazing this process is, right? And let's bring this back. If you've heard any of the other content that I talk about, I'm such a big believer in the idea that, somebody who's failed at dieting so many times, they're not a loser, they're not a failure. They actually have a very crazy drive for a goal that a lot of other people have already given up on. So effectively, they just refuse to quit. And that's such a beautiful thing long term when you're somebody who has been chasing a goal for a long time. You just didn't have the right path and you thought it was going to be based around forcing yourself to work out. And really, it's going to be something completely different. But it's such a beautiful thing when you finally get that result. And luckily, I get to see that very often in my program. Nobody stays in a job that they hate forever. Why would you think dieting would be any different, right? Anything that you hate, you will not continually do long term. Eventually, you will find a reason to skip it once and then twice. And then before you know it, you're not doing it anymore, right? So finding the solution to this, finding training you can tolerate and then grow it from there, right? Food flexibility so that you don't feel like you're cheating, but you're able to tick off cravings without having to go off the plan and punish yourself, right? The goal is to shift from fixing a problem to building a version of yourself that you respect. So you're not a problem to be fixed. You are, if you want to use like a building reference, right? You're like a building under renovations, right? Like we're taking you from like good to like the best you can ever be. That is the goal of this. This is not like, oh my God, I hate myself. I need to fix all this stuff. I don't know why I keep doing this. So shameful. It should be like, yeah, I've messed up a lot of times, but eventually I'm going to get it together and like find a path that works for me. Stop trying to punish yourself thin. It's never worked for anybody ever, right? Like the shame cycle has never brought anybody to sustainable weight loss. Have I seen people starve themselves into losing weight in the past? Of course. They can't maintain it long term because it's not a sustainable pattern, right? So now if punishment isn't the answer, people assume the problem is motivation, right? And it's not. So number 3, thinking you have a motivation problem, right? Motivation isn't your problem, momentum is. Motivation is a feeling, it's going to be completely unreliable. Clarity plus structure creates momentum, right? So when you are clear on what you're doing and why you're doing and how it's going to get you a certain result, it makes it so much easier to do it, right? Just like the job mentality, if you have the belief you're going to get paid for what you're doing, you have clarity on why you're going to work every day, it makes it easier to go. Results create belief, right? Visible progress also rewires your psychology, and that needs to happen quickly. So for any program to where you're not seeing any kind of tangible result right away, and there's some belief that like, oh, you're fixing stuff like under the surface, that's all ridiculous, right? Like you need to understand what's happening. And if you're that far off the mark, and we change everything and revamp everything, you should start seeing results usually within the first week. People quit because nothing ever worked long enough to build belief. And that's the truth. Same thing that I was just saying as far as, results. If it takes 3 months to see any kind of tangible result and a person has failed multiple times in the past, they're never making it to 3 months. They're never going to stick it out that long because they're effectively going to work and not getting paid. Like nobody's going to show up to work for 3 months in the hope that they finally get a paycheck someday when they haven't seen anything happen yet. So again, we start with clarity so that you know what we're doing and the direction we're going. And from clarity, we get to results that like really provide proof that this is working for you. And then from there, we build momentum. In real world examples, you'll see people say, I can't stay motivated, right? But they've never had a plan that produced real results, or they've seen results for a little bit, but they knew it wasn't something that was sustainable. So eventually they broke and went back to what they were doing before. Motivated in January, gone by March. This isn't because you're weak. It's because like nothing changed that fast and you had a belief, right? You built momentum around the new year, and so did a lot of other people around you. And when they all caved, it made it easier for you to cave also, right? So psychology tied to this, you lost your momentum because you didn't have a system and a community around you of people that were doing the same stuff. You didn't have somebody like motivating you, pushing you, assessing what's happening. You didn't have a standard that you were living up to that was built around your lifestyle. Like all that stuff makes it traditionally very hard to stick to a plan. You've been trying to get motivated to do things that haven't worked, right? So like, that's the hard part. How do you get motivated to do things that you know don't work, just to do them again for the sixth time? It's not a character flaw. That's just a rational belief. So it's not a problem at all. The problem is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So it's just the absence of having like a working system at all. So for example, this would be like telling someone to stay motivated while pushing a broken car uphill, right? Instead of just saying like, yeah, we're gonna fix the car at some point, don't worry about it. But like, just keep pushing it uphill. We got to get it like to the top, and then when we get it to the top, we'll fix it, right? But as that gets harder and harder and harder, and you're not seeing a real benefit for it, eventually you're just going to stop doing it. It doesn't make sense, right? Why can't we just fix the car down here? Why make it so difficult? And really in that situation, as stupid as it sounds, this is just lacking clarity, right? Like if there was a reason that the car couldn't be fixed at the bottom of the hill instead of the top, if you knew that reason, then you knew it had to get to the top, then it made more sense. And that's kind of the clarity that we need to have when we're dieting. Structure creates momentum, not willpower, right? And small visible wins early on change everything psychologically. As soon as you see something different than what you've seen before, the last 6 times you try to do this, you have a different buy-in. And every time we tick a new box, you have a new, like more and more buy-in. So one of my things is I like to take whatever the lowest weight is for somebody who, is trying to lose weight, fat, whatever that lowest weight was. They're like, oh, I haven't been that weight since I was like 20 and now they're 45. I like to take that weight and hit that first. Right? Because if we can get to that weight, it just, the look on people's faces and like the way that they talk, the way they show up to conversations and stuff, it's just a game changer. Because now they think like this is different, right? Which obviously I know it is, but I need them to know that it is also. But it's a game changer. As soon as we hit a certain level of momentum by virtue of results, everything changes. All right, so you don't have a momentum problem. You have never actually seen like it actually work. That's the problem. Right? And part of why nothing works, people are only looking at half the picture, which is leading into number 4, only focusing on calories and workouts, right? So, and to make it worse, a lot of people focus on one of them, like just nutrition, just workouts, and they kind of go back and forth, right? Calories and cardio are at the most 20% of the equation, and you're ignoring like 80%, right? So the biggest thing is the diet industry kind of taught this to people because it was simple, right? It was very simple to look at like, calories and stuff like that. But you really need to dive into like what is happening past a calorie level into like macros. And most people, believe it or not, and it's so commonplace, like for me and the people that I'm around and stuff like that. But a lot of people, almost every single person I talk to off of Instagram and social media and stuff hasn't even heard of macros. So calories break down into macros. I'm not going to go off into a rabbit hole of talking about that, but calories break down into protein, fat, and carbs, right? So if you eat 2,000 calories, how you structure those calories, but how much is made up of protein, carbs, and fat, with carbs and fat being energy. So how much energy are you intaking from the 2,000 versus like amino acids from the protein, and how much energy does your body need to burn from here because of the lack of energy that you're bringing in? So how do we create an energy deficit? If we eat all 2,000 calories from energy, meaning fat and carbs, and the protein is very low, it'll never work, right? Because we'll always have energy to burn and never need to burn any fat that's on our body. And then coupled with that, hormones, sleep, stress, digestion, those are always like a lot of times dismissed as everything is fine, right? Most doctors use insurance ranges right? If you don't know what an insurance range is, it's the range to where insurance will actually pay for medicine that you have to be outside of, right? So if you look at like a guy's testosterone level, for them to pay for testosterone replacement therapy, you need to be at this point, I think it's below 300, maybe even into the 200s, right? You can be systematically, functionally like disabled as a dude around like 400, 500, something like that. Everybody's, it also depends how high your SHBG level, how much of it is bound up, and how much free testosterone you actually have available. But, for you to have to wait, like if you're at 300, you're fine. But if you get to 280 or whatever, let's say, all of a sudden they can treat you. Those are just insurance ranges. The insurance doesn't want to pay for medication until it gets to a dire level. So they know, hey, below this level, this person is gonna have all kinds of other problems we're gonna have to pay for, so we'll cover it there. That doesn't mean that that is the level that you wait for, but that is what doctors typically will be telling you. All right, back to the topic. Real world examples. Tracking macros perfectly, but still not losing, right? People aren't addressing what other roadblocks are there. That is the biggest thing that I push in this program, and why I've been so successful with chronic dieters is that it's not just the numbers or macros, right? Anybody can go to ChatGPT and get macros. Anybody can do a diet they did 20 years ago. It doesn't work because there's so many other factors at play. Working out 5 times a week, still inflamed, still exhausted, still not losing weight, gut issues blocking absorption, cortisol from stress storing fat regardless of any deficit that you're on, right? Those are all small factors, but they all play into this picture altogether. So the system needs to be dialed in around all of that, right? You can't out diet a stressed nervous system, can't out train a disrupted hormonal environment, and this is why doing everything right still fails people all the time. So you hear people saying, I'm doing everything right, I just don't know what's going on. The truth is this: one, you need to stop saying that, because if you were doing everything right for your body, you would have the optimal result, right? So that is what we have to keep in mind. But we're so in tune with just saying, I don't understand, I'm just eating so clean, I'm just doing this, I'm just doing that. And that makes us feel better about our side of the effort, but we're not getting the results. So ultimately something's missing, right? Like if you're interviewing for a job so many times and you're just not getting it, you're like, I don't understand, I'm the perfect candidate, I'm doing everything right. There's something wrong. Like you need to ask somebody else, you need to get somebody else's help on like whatever you're doing, interviewing, your resume, like your skill level, how you're dressed, like something, right? Something you're missing. All right, here's the main stuff that really factors in that matters. Digestion, right? Bloating, poor absorption, inflammation, huge issues. Hormones, thyroid, cortisol, insulin, leptin, sex hormones, huge, right? And there's so many different interplaying things here. I've caught so many issues as far as thyroid issues go with females who were undertreated or treated with the wrong medicine for decades, like 2 decades. The one I had at like 25 years. With the wrong medicine, it instantly was fixed because doctors just weren't able to assess what was happening at a like cellular level because they didn't really understand what was going on. All right, sleep. Sleep is so important as far as, like keeping your stress hormones low and allowing your body to like repair itself and really curbing, a lot of the other things that amplify out from poor sleep, like hunger, poor muscle recovery, fat storage, stuff like that. Stress is huge. It plays into all this other stuff. Most people are, over, stimulated by electronic devices. They have typically poor sleep. They're overstressed in their mind and they eat very poorly, and all connected together creates like this huge like life of stress going on in chaotic environment inside your body. Emotional eating, the psychological piece that nobody really addresses ever. Most people don't understand psychological emotional eating anymore because it's so commonplace, right? You can go on Instagram and you can see tons and tons of reels of people constantly talking about how amazing food is. Like, you're stupid if you don't want to eat this garbage that they have in this video, right? Even though it's not going to ultimately lead you towards your goals. And like, we have as a society attached so many feelings to food at this point that like we've completely lost the idea of eating at food for like fuel and enjoying it, like enjoying it, but like at the same time utilizing it for what we need. Now it's become this experience that we all like utilize, right? And then your mindset is going to tell the story of what's going on in the background of your life, right? And I've said this a million times, people don't fail fat loss or dieting because of macros. They fail it because of their mindset, right? They fail it because of psychology and the stories that we tell ourselves about like how this is gonna work, what's gonna happen long term, if I'm even worthy to get to that point. We have to look at the whole system, blood work, hormones, gut, all of it. We have to have a plan that's built around it, right? You've been trying to solve a 5 to 10 variable problem with one variable, maybe two, and that's a guaranteed failure as far as math goes long term. But even if people had all of this like dialed in, the one mindset pattern that destroys everything is number 5, right? Expecting perfection instead of consistency, right? So one bad meal shouldn't end your week and then you start over next week, right? But for most people, that's what happens, right? They typically have this belief system that if they've been dialed in and they've been getting good results, they are entitled to eating this cupcake or this cookie or this dessert or going out to dinner or having a cheat meal, right? And that's okay. We can build that in. The problem is the two differing psychological methods here or like ideologies in people's mind is I've been doing so well, I deserve this. And then typically you see the same people as soon as they have that one cookie go, well, now I feel bad. I messed up the whole thing. Like, it doesn't even matter anymore. Like, I'm not even on the plan since I did this. I'll just start again next week. And then they blow the whole thing up. And this is a psychological, cyclical pattern that they go through all the time, right? They effectively, like you just heard, set themselves up for failure and then capitalize on the failure as soon as they can talk themselves into doing it. And they absolutely do not intend on doing this. This is a subconscious thing that they have to become aware of so they can stop. You know, most of us are walking around this world operating on like subconscious thinking about what triggers us, how we respond to things. But like when you get intentional with this stuff, you can, really jump into the mix here and rewire what happens from there, right? The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to not quit and be consistent, right? Consistent doesn't mean perfection. It just means I'm being consistent. If I have a cookie here or there, like, all right, I had a cookie, we figure out why, like what was the thought process behind it and stuff like that. And then past that, next time, maybe we have the same cookie. Who cares, right? But it needs to be intentional and not some subconscious like sabotage that you do to yourself that brings on shame and guilt and stuff like that. One of the biggest reasons people can't recover quickly is that they're doing this alone, right? So pride is expensive, especially when it comes to like what it costs you in years of your life and unhappiness, right? So most people have this belief around fitness and nutrition that they want to do it on their own or they don't need help, right? And it's the biggest lie that we have because every single other thing in your life, you just immediately call for help. Roof leak, you call somebody. You need to get your oil changed, you don't like all of a sudden try to figure out how to change your oil. Let me paint a picture for you. If you were trying to change your oil and you did it 10 times and every single time the car broke down and like you didn't do it right and you had to pay somebody to fix it after that, would you continue, right? And you're unhappy, the car's messed up now. Would you continue to try to do it on your own? There's not a person on this planet that would do that. That would be so ridiculous. But people do this with their bodies all the time for some reason, right? They always they always say stuff to me like, I understand what to do, I'm not doing it. And I know that's such a cliche phrase. Every single consultation call that I do almost, people say it. Every single one. Yeah, I totally know what to do. To be honest with you, I'm not doing it. If you knew what to do, you would do it. Like and I mean that in the sense of the reason people aren't doing what they know to do is because the thing that they know to do is terrible, right? Chicken and broccoli, starving themselves, killing themselves in the gym. That's why they don't do it. But if it was built around a system to where it was a real lifestyle, to where you could still be social, you had to put some effort in. I don't run into too many people who really lack any type of effort. I run into people that systematically don't want to kill themselves in the gym, and I'm in, at the same place as them now. I don't want to do that either. So it makes a lot of sense. Once you have a process to where you can get the result and you don't have to kill yourself, it's not unfun, it's not a not fun process, and you get to enjoy it. There's no reason not to do it. And that's the clarity that takes people usually to ultimate success long term. Accountability is really a tool that you need, right? Like you can't hold yourself accountable. By the time people come and talk to me, they've already identified that they are the broken system, right? Like even though their brain's trying to say like, we got this, don't worry, we got this. They already know that they're broken. They're broken in the sense of they've already tried this. They weren't able to get a result. They just don't have it there at this time. They don't understand what it takes to get to the ultimate goal, they need accountability. They need somebody to tweak stuff on a weekly basis. They need somebody to explain stuff to them so they have clarity. They need a team of people to help them achieve a goal, right? And if you've ever had a business coach, if you've ever had a psychologist, if you ever had a mentor, if you ever had a boss at work that helped you, or somebody who like trained you for a new position, we don't do anything in this world without being taught how to do it. So if you don't know how to do this and you struggle 10 times, you need somebody to teach you how to do it. At the end of the day, that makes sense. All right, now let's talk about the belief that's made the entire process miserable from the start, right? Thinking healthy has to mean miserable, right? And I just touched on it, so I'll be super short on this one, but the idea that this has to be a miserable process is a must for most people when they come in. They want to dial in, they want to eat less, and they want to do more than I'm trying to tell them to, when my goal is to stimulate their metabolism at the beginning and then from there strip off fat. Most people actually cheat more when they don't feel like they're on a diet. They actually, it's harder to dial them in. So, because people want to punish themselves when they first come in. They finally made a commitment. They actually want to see results this time. They hear me talk and they think this is amazing. So they want to go 1,000%, and it always backfires on them, right? You don't want to create a situation to where you feel terrible, because as soon as you feel terrible, your mind will ramp up the negative self-talk to an all-time high and sabotage you to a level that you won't be able to resist quitting from. So this has to be something to where your brain's like, I don't know if we can do this long-term, but like it's pretty easy, honestly. Like, I don't see why we couldn't. Like, that's the kind of conversations that you need to have to really break through the cyclical thinking you've had in the past. All right. But here's what nobody like really talks about: what losing this weight actually does to your life beyond physical, right? And number 8, understanding how much confidence changes everything. This is the biggest impact that most people are ignoring. And I just don't buy into it anymore. Like when I watch people laughing about, being overweight or, like not wanting to put any effort into anything. My thing is this: I coach people, typically men and women between 35 and 55, that are typically parents, busy jobs, careers, excelling at everything in life. Those people aren't the people who laugh about having to put effort into exercising. They're not the people that laugh when they look in the mirror at their own bodies and are just unhappy with what they see, right? They've achieved so much in their life, right? They're painting a picture of who they are as a role model to their kids, and like their body shows chaos. Their body shows decision-making is poor, but they're killing it on a financial level, business level, work level, parenting level, relationship level. So what I see a lot of times is when these people come in and they are identifying as somebody who like kind of doesn't care, and it's so misaligned with the rest of their life, they just have given up on there being a possible way to do this. And the second that I hit them with a program and a process that's built in clarity on what we're going to do, they get so ignited and lit up around the process. It's so amazing because, they now have this belief that they're going to be able to complete this like circle of success around their entire life. And it's such a cool thing to see. Your personal identity, how much self-respect you have, your work ethic, your relationships, how you're viewed as a leader, your energy levels, those are all driven by your self-confidence. Like, believe it or not, they're all built by self-confidence. Like, how can somebody go by being so triggered from everyone around them to being so confident in themselves? And it comes through the fact that like, when you're insecure about who you are and people say things, whatever it is, it triggers you because you believe the same thing about yourself. You believe you're not worthy. You believe you're less than. But when you feel amazing in your body, it doesn't matter what anybody around you says. You're so chipper, walking around whistling and singing and stuff, because none of it matters. You don't believe it. You know where you're at. You know how amazing you are currently. And this isn't about body image necessarily, but body image is such a huge thing. We're in a life and society that's built so much around the clothes we wear, like how our fingernails are painted if you're a female, the shoes we wear, how our hair is, not for me, obviously, but all of that. And then our body is in complete chaos and we don't like the way it looks. That's a huge pain point in most people's lives. So correcting that has an intrinsically huge value throughout your entire life. It'll make you a better spouse, a better parent, a better human, a better, business owner. Like, you will have cracked the one problem that like 90% of the population can't do. Now you're like in the 1%, you're elite. All right. And most people have all the information that they need overall to crack this problem, but that's not the problem, right? Information isn't it. So number 9 is confusing information with implementation, right? You already know what to do. That's not why you're stuck, right? A lot of people understand the idea of nutrition. They understand the idea of working out. They could even have the plan. It's not about that. It's about how do you implement it? How do you implement any type of plan into a real life? How do you take a plan and then when every little hiccup pops up, oh, your kids have this event, you have a work dinner, social event, your anniversary. How do you adapt it to that so you can feel normal, be social, but live a real normal life? How do you do that, right? It's not about the information. You understand what the process is. Even when you have clarity, but you need to have someone help you implement it the correct way to get a result. Keeping the result is so much easier, and that is much easier to do on your own. Getting the result takes a fine-tuned, adjustment-based system week by week, right? So you need help on that. Most people, follow so many like Instagram fitness accounts and coaches and stuff. They're constantly inundated with like new information. If that was going to solve the problem, it would have done it by now, right? You can read every book that's out there on surgery, let's say, right? It's a good example. On surgery, it doesn't make you a surgeon, right? I don't care if you read every book, you watch surgeries and stuff like that. Until you've actually done this and done this at a high level and been able to tweak it to all different types of people, you'll never have the answer for yourself, right? Like most coaches always have a coach themselves because they still understand the ability or the value to take your mind out of the process, right? And have somebody program things for you, right? The deepest mistake out of all of these, the one underneath it all, is who you still think you are, right? And number 10, the last one, staying attached to your old identity. The body will never outrun your identity, right? Like who you actually believe you are. So psychology is so intertwined in all of this, but if you identify yourself as lazy, broken, inconsistent, overweight, self-sabotaging will always be there for you because that person, the person who's lazy, broken, inconsistent, and overweight doesn't deserve to get this result that Matt is trying to help them get. So you will intentionally self-sabotage yourself because you don't want to even take a risk at trying to achieve those things because you don't think that they're for you. The subconscious will pull you back to who you believe you are. That always happens. You have to become the future version of yourself mentally first. So this is something I talk about a lot, but you have to future project 6 months from now who you are going to be. And if you had the ultimate result that you want 6 months from now, right? That person, that version of Matt, he looks back right now. What decisions does he make now? Not you right now. The person who doesn't believe in this process, the person who doesn't believe anything is possible for you, like you're at your peak right now. If you're like that person 6 months from now, what decision would they make on tonight? Would they care about this food? Would they eat it? Would they skip it? Would they, have these thoughts? How would that person think? It makes such a big difference when you start implementing this. And it's not I'm going to do this. I'm going to implement this new thought process. It's a small thing. You have to dip the toe in, start trying to do it, see the value in it. Eventually you need to overhaul the whole process, right? You view yourself as a failure because you failed at this thing so many times, but you need to start winning so you can re-identify yourself as a winner, right? Your habits will always match your identity. So, you could try to fake it, right? Like the poor person who's in the room with all the rich people, you could try to act like them, but you're going to get identified very quickly, right? You have to become them first before you try to live that lifestyle. If you still believe you're the person who fails, you'll always find a way to fail. And I've seen this be replicated so many times over. The transformation isn't physical first, it's mental, right? That's why I push on the psychology so much. You have to fire the old version of yourself first, right? You have to, and this sounds ridiculous, right? But you have to have a conversation with yourself to where you legitimately say, hey, I'm done with this person that I used to be. I'm not going to make decisions the way this person used to make it. I'm going to make decisions aligned with the goal that I want. And a side note here, something I'm real big on, writing down your goals on a notepad file or even a little piece of paper and reading them every day, right? You need to have daily affirmations on there about how amazing you are, personal achievements. I did this for a long period of time and I'm telling you, it's magical if you actually try it. If you think it's stupid, then all right, then you'll gain nothing from it, right? But unless you try it and then know that it's not for you, it's the only way you'll ever know it's not. So But every day you get up, you read like how amazing you are, like, what you've done, where you're at, how great of a parent you are, how great of a spouse you are, significant other, like how much you deserve, like love, how valuable you are as a person, what your goals are, what you're going to do today to achieve them. That'll be a game changer for you if you do it. Practical solution: consciously audit the story you're telling yourself. Act as the future version of you. Like I just said, before the results confirm it. Identity shift is a daily practice, not a moment, right? And if you hear, and I said it once already in this meeting, but if you say the word try, you don't have a plan. Come up with an actionable plan to do these things. As crazy as that is, come up with a plan on how you're going to implement these thought processes daily, right? You will self-sabotage every result that doesn't match who you believe you are. So we got to change the game for you, right? At the end of the day, this was never about like weight. When the body changes, like life changes for you. Confidence, leadership, relationships, energy, self-respect. People become proud of themselves again, some of them for the first time in a very long time, maybe decades. The ripple effect throughout your life is so massive, right? Think about who you would be without the weight of this hanging over you all the time. Think about the energy you've spent on shame, embarrassment, hiding. That energy gets redirected when you don't have that pressure on you anymore. You can redirect it into your career, your relationships, your presence, new hobbies, new goals. The real cost of staying stuck is carrying this burden around forever. The person you're becoming isn't just healthier, they're freer and independent from all of this. And they're successful, right? So the biggest thing at the end of the day for you is that if any of this resonated with you and you want to see like what we're doing in my program, how we systematically break through all 10 of these very early on and rewire your brain to the 6-month version of yourself in the future so you don't have to do it on your own, go to my Instagram page. On any reel that's there, comment the word secret. I'll send you a link to my landing page that has a 7-minute video that breaks down the exact process, how it works, how we get these crazy results that you see on my page, plus a bunch of other usable info there. Give me a follow on there. And if you can subscribe to this channel too. My goal here is really to, take the short content from Instagram and really like leverage in on it for a longer period of time, hitting the psychological aspects of this that I've seen so many people fail at in the dieting aspect of their lives over a 1,000 person span. So if any of that resonated you, give me a comment there. See you next time.